she was pregnant by a mafia alpha, but 2 alpha queens came to claim the baby. I learned I was pregnant on the same night 2 alpha queens came to kill each other. Not in a hospital, not in some quiet little bathroom with soft lighting and a trembling hand pressed over my mouth. No. I found out in the back room of a mafia-owned nightclub while gunfire cracked through the walls, while women screamed in the main hall, while blood slid under the door in a thin red line, and while the most feared alpha in the city held my face between her hands and whispered, "Elara, look at me. Breathe." That was Seraphine Vale, the queen of the East Docks, the woman everyone said had no heart, the woman who could make armed men lower their weapons with a glance, the woman who had once told me, "No Omega under my protection will ever kneel again." The woman who might have been the mother of my unborn child. But she was not the only one, because standing on the other side of that locked door, surrounded by her own guards, was Marcelline Draven, the queen of the North Circle, Seraphine's oldest enemy. The woman with silver hair, a velvet voice, and eyes so gentle they made you forget she had ruined entire families without ever raising her hand. The woman who had kissed my scars like they were not shameful. The woman who had once said, "If the world taught you to survive by becoming invisible, then let me be the first to look at you and stay." She might have been the mother, too, and neither of them knew. Not yet. Neither of them knew I had loved them both. Neither of them knew my heat had overlapped between 2 enemies. Neither of them knew that while they were preparing to tear the city apart over territory, blood debts, and old betrayals, I was carrying a secret that could destroy them both. The test was in my pocket, still warm from my shaking hand. 2 dark lines, clear as a verdict. Pregnant. I should have been thinking about the baby. I should have been thinking about survival. But all I could hear was Seraphine's voice as she leaned closer, shielding my body with hers while bullets struck the wall outside. "Who touched you?" she asked, not because she suspected, not yet, because an alpha always knows when fear changes scent. And mine had changed. I smelled like terror, like blood, like impossible truth. I looked into her gray eyes and almost told her, almost said, "It could be yours." Almost said, "It could be hers." Almost said, "I am carrying the one thing powerful enough to turn your war into a funeral." Instead, the door exploded inward. Marcelline Draven stepped through the smoke with a gun in one hand and murder in her eyes. Her gaze found me. Then Seraphine's hands on my face. Then the way my body leaned into Seraphine like it remembered safety there. The room went silent. Marcelline smiled. It was the saddest smile I had ever seen. "Oh, little star," she whispered, "what have you done?" Before I tell you how everything burned, I need to tell you who I was before the Queens. My name is Elara Wynne, but that was not the name I was born with. The name I was born with belonged to an Omega girl from a coastal town, where storms came hard and people pretended not to hear crying through thin walls. My mother used to say Omegas were born with 2 hearts, one in the chest, one in the throat. The one in the chest kept us alive. The one in the throat betrayed us every time we wanted to say no. I did not understand what she meant until my first heat. I was 17, too young to be wanted the way alphas wanted, too old for the world to pretend it was not looking. My scent changed first, then the way people spoke to me. Shopkeepers smiled longer. Male alphas turned their heads. Female alphas softened their voices into something almost kind, but not quite safe. And every Omega woman in town started giving me the same warning with her eyes. Hide. That was when Cassian Rook entered my life. He was not a queen, not a king, not even truly powerful compared to the women I would later know. But in a small town, a cruel alpha with money is enough to become law. Cassian owned warehouses, fishing boats, 3 restaurants, and half the police force. He wore expensive coats and spoke softly to everyone, which made people call him civilized. He was not civilized. He was patient. That is worse. He chose me the way some people choose a horse, quietly, publicly, like the decision had already been made before anyone asked whether the horse wanted the saddle. At first, he sent flowers, then medicine, then money when my mother's bills grew too high. Then he sent a contract. A bonding contract. My mother cried when she saw it. Not because she wanted me to sign, because she knew refusing would cost us everything. I signed it with a hand that did not feel like mine. For 2 years, I belonged to Cassian Rook. Not legally, people would say. Not really, they would say. But everyone knew. Everyone knew whose car waited outside the market when I worked late. Everyone knew whose hand stayed at the back of my neck when we entered rooms. Everyone knew whose scent I was forced to wear even when I scrubbed my skin raw. He never hit me where people could see. That was his talent. He understood that ownership did not need bruises if it had fear. "You are lucky," he used to tell me while fastening diamonds around my throat like a collar. "Most Omegas beg to be chosen." I learned not to answer. Silence was safer. Until one night, silence almost killed me. Cassian brought me to a private gathering at the mayor's house. Alphas drank whiskey and laughed about Omega laws being too modern. Women in silk dresses smiled with dead eyes. I stood beside Cassian's chair with his hand resting on my hip like a signature. Someone asked when he planned to breed me. Just like that, as if I were livestock. Cassian smiled. "Soon. She is nearly obedient enough." Everyone laughed. Something in me broke so quietly, no one heard it. That night, when he slept, I took the emergency cash my mother had hidden inside a flour tin, cut off the bracelet that carried his scent chip, and ran. I did not say goodbye. Not to my mother, not to the town, not to the girl I had been. I took a bus, then another, then a train. By dawn, I had chosen a new name from a billboard for a perfume called Elara. Win came from the woman who sat beside me on the train and gave me half her sandwich without asking why I was shaking. Elara Win, a name with no owner. I promised myself I would never belong to an alpha again. Promises are easy to make before loneliness starts whispering. 3 years later, I worked at the Glass Chapel. It was the kind of nightclub that did not advertise because anyone rich enough to enter already knew where it was. No sign outside, no windows, just a black door at the end of an alley and a woman named Nadja, who decided whether you were worth letting in. The Glass Chapel was built under an old theater. Red velvet booths, gold mirrors, smoke curling under chandeliers. Music slow enough to feel like a secret being undressed. Alphas came there to make deals. Betas came there to sell loyalty. Omegas came there only if they were working. I was a server. A good one. Invisible when needed, memorable when tipped. I knew how to pour wine without spilling, how to step away before a hand reached, how to laugh just enough that powerful women felt charming but not enough that they thought I invited them closer. That was where I first saw Seraphine Vale. It was raining that night. Hard rain, the kind that turns alleys into black rivers and makes neon signs bleed color across the pavement. The club was full, louder than usual, packed with women from the South Market celebrating a shipping contract. Their alpha scents mixed with alcohol and perfume until my head ached. Then the door opened. The music did not stop, but everyone did. Seraphine Vale entered alone. That was the first strange thing. Women like her did not go anywhere alone. Even queens needed guards. But Seraphine walked in without visible protection, wearing a long black coat with rain shining on the shoulders and leather gloves tight around her hands. Her dark hair was pinned back. Her face was calm. Her eyes were gray like winter sea. She looked around the club once, only once, and every armed woman in the room lowered her gaze. I knew her name before anyone said it. Everyone knew Seraphine Vale. The city had 3 powers: the Old Council, made of ancient alpha families who pretended to be respectable; the East Docks, ruled by Seraphine; and the North Circle, ruled by Marcelline Draven. The council owned laws. Seraphine owned movement. Ports, trucks, warehouses, routes. If something entered the city in darkness, Seraphine knew before dawn. Marcelline owned influence. Judges, donors, galleries, clinics, charities. Secrets wrapped in silk. They had once been allies. Then something happened 12 years ago. A betrayal. A dead sister. A burned warehouse. A child who disappeared. No one told the story the same way twice, but from that night onward, Seraphine and Marcelline hated each other so deeply that the entire city learned to breathe around their silence. And now, Seraphine Vale was walking toward my bar. I lowered my eyes, not because she forced me to, because some instincts are older than pride. "Water," she said. Her voice was low, not cold, not warm, controlled. I poured it. She did not drink. She watched me. "What is your name?" "Elara." "Only Elara?" "Only Seraphine?" A woman behind her inhaled sharply. I realized too late what I had said. But Seraphine did not punish me. She looked at me for a long moment. Then the corner of her mouth moved, almost a smile. "Careful," she said. "I try to be." "No." Her eyes dropped briefly to my throat, where my scent patch hid most of my omega scent. "You try to disappear. It is not the same." My hand tightened around the bottle. She saw that too. Seraphine Vale saw everything. "I did not ask to be noticed," I said. "Few valuable things do." I hated the way that sentence entered me, like a key. She left without finishing the water, but under the glass, she left a black card. No number, no address, just her name, and beneath it, written by hand, "When you are ready to stop hiding, ask Nadja for the blue room." I told myself I would burn the card. Instead, I carried it in my apron pocket for 6 days. On the 7th, Cassie and Rook found me. Not in person. Not yet. A message arrived on my phone from an unknown number. "Little Omega, did you think a new name made you new?" I dropped the phone so hard the screen cracked. For 3 hours, I sat on the floor of my apartment, knees against my chest, staring at the locked door. I had moved 6 times in 3 years, changed jobs, changed hair, changed documents. But fear has a scent, and men like Cassian are trained to follow it. That night, I asked Nadja for the blue room. She did not look surprised. She took me through a back corridor behind the club, down a set of stairs, past a steel door, and into a room that looked nothing like the velvet lie upstairs. The blue room was an office. Plain, secure. A wall of monitors, a city map, a locked cabinet. And Seraphine Vale standing by the windowless wall, reading from a file. My file. I knew because my old name was on the top page. The dead name. The one Cassian owned. My vision blurred. "You investigated me," I said. "Yes." Her honesty was immediate. Cruel, maybe, but clean. "Why?" "Because you looked hunted." I laughed. It came out broken. "And you collect hunted omegas?" "No." She closed the file. "I kill hunters when it suits me." The words should have frightened me. They did. But they also made something in me go terribly still. "Cassian found me," I whispered. "I know." My stomach dropped. "How?" "He sent someone into my club asking questions about a runaway Omega with a false name and a scar behind her left ear." My hand flew to the scar. Seraphine's expression did not change, but her eyes darkened. "I had the man followed." "Is he alive?" "For now." A chill went through me. "You can't just kill people because of me." "I can do many things because of you, Elara. The question is what you will permit." No one had ever asked me that before. What I would permit. Cassian took. My mother apologized. The town looked away. Even kind people assumed survival meant accepting whatever powerful alphas decided was necessary. But Seraphine asked. Not sweetly, not gently, but she asked. "What do you want?" she said. The question was too big, too dangerous, so I gave the smallest answer. "I want him to stop finding me." Seraphine nodded once. "Then we begin there." That was how I entered her world, not as a lover, not at first, as a protected witness. That was what she called it. I called it breathing with borrowed lungs. Seraphine moved me into a safer apartment above a closed bookshop owned by one of her retired guards, a beta woman named Iona, who had silver braids and a shotgun behind the counter. She gave me new documents stronger than the old ones. She found the men Cassian had sent and sent them back with messages I was not allowed to read. She placed 2 female guards near my street, far enough not to suffocate me, close enough that I slept through the night for the first time in years. But protection has a gravity. At first, I only met Seraphine when necessary, to answer questions, to identify names, to confirm details from Cassian's network. Then she began appearing at the bookshop after closing, always with a reason, a document, a warning, a question about whether I had eaten. She never stayed long. That made the leaving worse. One night, rain trapped us inside. Iona had gone upstairs. The shop smelled of paper and wet wool. Seraphine stood by the counter, watching water stream down the dark front window. "You should sleep," she said. "You say that like it's an order." "If it were, you would already be in bed." I smiled before I could stop myself. She turned. Her gaze caught the smile and held it like something fragile. "You do that rarely," she said. "What?" forget to be afraid?" The smile died. Her face changed. "I did not mean to take it." "No." I looked away. "It leaves on its own." Silence stretched between us. Then she removed her gloves. Slowly, finger by finger. I do not know why that felt intimate. Maybe because Seraphine always wore armor, and even skin could be armor if revealed carefully. "Cassian wanted obedience," she said. "I want truth. They are not the same thing." "What if my truth is ugly?" "Then it will not be lonely." I closed my eyes. That was the moment I started losing the war against her. Not when she protected me, not when she looked at me like I mattered, but when she made room for the parts of me I thought no one would survive seeing. I kissed her first. People would not believe that. They would imagine Seraphine Vale taking, claiming, pressing me against shelves while thunder shook the windows. But no. I stepped toward her. I touched her sleeve. She went perfectly still. "Elara," she said, warning and plea tangled together. "I want to," I whispered. Her jaw tightened. "Want is not always safe." "I know." "Do you?" The question hurt. I almost stepped back. Then I realized she was not doubting my desire. She was guarding it. So I said clearly, "I want to kiss you. I want you to kiss me back. I want to be able to stop and have you stop. I want to not be afraid that wanting something means I owe everything." Seraphine's breath changed. For a moment she looked almost wounded. Then she cupped my face with both hands so gently it made my throat ache. "You owe me nothing," she said. Then she kissed me. It was careful at first, so careful I nearly cried. Her mouth moved against mine like restraint had a pulse, like every part of her wanted to devour, but had chosen deliberately to learn gentleness instead. When I trembled, she stopped. When I leaned closer, she made a sound low in her chest and kissed me again. Outside, rain blurred the city. Inside, for one impossible minute, I was not a runaway Omega, not a witness, not a body once owned by a cruel Alpha. I was a woman being kissed by another woman who was powerful enough to take anything and disciplined enough to ask. That kind of power ruins you for lesser things. For 5 weeks, Seraphine and I existed in secret. Not hidden because she was ashamed. Hidden because her enemies would use me if they knew. She never said love, neither did I. But she learned my tea. She sent books with notes in the margins. She showed up after nightmares and sat on the floor beside my bed, because I told her I did not like people looming over me when I woke. Once I woke at 3 a.m, shaking from a dream about Cassian's hands, and Seraphine sat beside the bed in the dark, fully dressed, one hand resting palm up on the blanket between us. Not touching. Waiting. I placed my hand in hers. She closed her fingers slowly. "I am here," she said. That was all. I believed her. Then I met Marcelline Draven. It happened at the Winter Mercy Gala, a charity event for Omega shelters, which sounds noble until you realize half the donors were the same alphas who made shelters necessary. Seraphine did not want me there. "You are not ready for that room," she said. I stood in her office, wearing the dark green dress she had sent over, trying not to notice the way her eyes had lingered when I entered. "I'm not a child." "No, you are a target." I am also the only person Cassian's old associates won't recognize if I'm dressed like someone else's assistant. Seraphine's mouth tightened. She hated when I was right. You stay near Iona. Iona scares donors. Iona scares everyone. That is why I like her. I'll be careful. Seraphine stepped closer. She smelled like cedar, rain, and the sharp, clean edge of alpha control. You always say that, she murmured. Because I always am. No, Elara. Her thumb brushed the inside of my wrist. You are brave. Brave people confuse survival with safety. I wanted to tell her not to care so much, but the words would have been false. So I said, then teach me the difference later. Her eyes darkened. Do not say later like it is guaranteed. At the gala, everyone wore white, silver, or pale gold. A room full of saints with blood under their rings. The event was held in the old opera house north of the river. Chandeliers dripped light over marble floors. A string quartet played music too delicate for the deals being made in corners. I moved through the room with a tablet, pretending to manage donations while memorizing faces from Seraphine's files. Then a woman said behind me, You are too beautiful to be used as bait. I turned. Marcelline Draven stood beneath a balcony carved with angels. Silver hair, ivory suit, blue eyes bright with amusement, and something sharper beneath. She looked nothing like Seraphine. Seraphine was shadow and locked doors. Marcelline was moonlight on a knife. I knew her immediately. Every person in the city knew her face. From charity boards, political fundraisers, museum openings, and whispered warnings. She smiled. I forgot the line Seraphine had given me. Do not engage. Lady Draven, I said. Little formal for someone wearing veil green. My blood chilled. She noticed the dress. Of course she did. I'm working, I said. For her? For the event? How diplomatic. I try. No, Marcelline said softly. You hide. There is a difference. The echo of Seraphine's words struck me hard enough that I looked away. Marcelline saw that too. Her amusement faded. Forgive me, she said. I blinked. Alphas did not apologize to Omegas they had just met. Not sincerely. Marcelline offered her hand palm up, not demanding, offering. I am Marcelline. I know. And you are? I should have lied. Instead, I said, Elara. Her face softened around the name. Elara, she repeated. Like a star. No, like a perfume billboard. She laughed. It was warm. That surprised me more than anything. Marcelline should have stayed a warning, an enemy name, a woman Seraphine hated. Instead, she became a conversation. She asked what I thought of the gala. I said it was expensive guilt dressed as mercy. She laughed again, but this time there was sadness under it. She asked if I believed shelters helped Omegas. I said shelters helped the Omegas who survived long enough to reach them. Her eyes changed. Not pity. Recognition. Who hurt you? She asked quietly. The question was too direct. I stepped back. She did not follow. Sorry, she said. That was not mine to ask. No, I said. It wasn't. Will you accept an apology twice in one conversation? I don't know. I'm not used to receiving them. Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe. Or anger on my behalf. That was the dangerous thing about Marcelline. Seraphine made me feel protected. Marcelline made me feel understood. Protection can become a wall. Understanding becomes a door. Later that night, I found her in the closed gallery. Or maybe she found me. Paintings lined the walls, old portraits of alpha women who had probably ruined lives with better posture than most people could manage. Marcelline stood before one of them with a glass of untouched champagne. "Do you know why Seraphine hates me?" she asked. I should have left. Instead, I said, "She doesn't talk about you."
That means yes.
No, it means she has discipline.
Marcelline smiled. She would like that answer.
I folded my arms. "Are you trying to use me against her?"
Yes,
she said. My mouth went dry. Then she looked at me.
at first.
The honesty stunned me. Marcelline set the champagne down.
I saw you across the room wearing her color, and I thought, there is the weakness she has been hiding.
My chest tightened.
But then you spoke, Marcelline continued, and I realized you were not weakness.
What am I? Her gaze moved over my face slowly, not like ownership, like reading.
A wound that learned to walk upright.
I hated that. I loved it. I hated that I loved it. "You don't know me," I whispered.
No.
She stepped closer, stopping with careful distance between us.
But I know what it looks like when someone has spent years apologizing for taking up space.
I could not breathe. Marcelline's voice softened.
Whoever taught you that was wrong.
I left before I cried. But crying is not the only way the body confesses. For days after the gala, I thought of her. I thought of Seraphine, too. That was the problem. When Seraphine kissed me, I felt anchored. When Marcelline looked at me, I felt seen. I tried to avoid her, truly, but Marcelline Draven did not chase. She appeared. At a bookstore signing where Iona had taken me for normal human enrichment. At a clinic fundraiser. Outside the glass chapel under a red umbrella, waiting as if Rain had made an appointment with her. "You are following me," I said. "No," she replied. "I am being conveniently inevitable." "You're Seraphine's enemy." "I am many things." She would hate this. Does that matter more than what you want? The question hit the weakest place in me. What I want has caused me enough trouble. Then perhaps you have been punished by the wrong people. I should not have gone walking with her. I did. The city after rain smelled like stone and gasoline. We walked through streets where old buildings leaned over us like nosy relatives. Marcelline kept her hands in her coat pockets. She did not touch me. She only asked questions. What books did I like? What did I eat when no one watched? Did I prefer mornings or nights? Had anyone ever taken me somewhere simply because I wanted to see it? The questions were small. That made them devastating. Cassian had wanted obedience. Seraphine wanted truth. Marcelline wanted details. Details are intimate. They say, "I believe you exist, even when you are not useful." One night, she took me to a closed conservatory full of orange trees. The air was warm and fragrant, glass walls fogged from inside, the city blurred beyond them. "I bought this place when I was 26, she said. "Why?" "Because my mother told me nothing delicate survives winter." I touched a leaf. "And did you prove her wrong?" "No." Marcelline looked at me. I learned delicate things survive when someone builds the right conditions. There was no reason for that sentence to undo me, but it did. I cried. Quietly at first, then not quietly. Marcelline did not touch me until I reached for her. When I did, she gathered me carefully, like she had been waiting for permission with her whole body. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "For what?" "I don't know." "I do," she whispered. "You are apologizing for needing comfort. Stop." I kissed her because I could not survive another kind thing without turning it into something physical. That was the truth. Not romantic, not clean, but real. Marcelline pulled back first. "Elara," she said, breath unsteady. "Are you sure?" "No." She went still. I touched her face. "I'm not sure of anything. I'm scared. I'm confused. I know this is wrong because of Seraphine, because of your war, because of everything. But I want you, and I hate that wanting still feels like danger." Marceline closed her eyes. When she opened them, they shone. "Then we go slowly." And we did. Too slowly to call it a mistake, too intentionally to call it an accident. I became the secret between two queens. With Seraphine, I spent nights in quiet apartments where she removed her weapons before coming near me because she knew I noticed. She cooked badly. Shockingly badly. The first time she made soup, I asked whether it was meant to be eaten or used to strip paint. She looked offended for nearly 10 minutes. Then she ordered food and pretended it had been the plan. With Marceline, I spent afternoons in sunlit rooms where she read aloud from books she claimed were important and I claimed were boring. She played piano when she did not know how to speak. She kissed my shoulder like she was asking a question. Neither relationship was simple. Neither was safe. But both were real. That was what made everything unforgivable. I could have chosen. I should have chosen. But when you have spent years starved of tenderness, two hands reaching for you can feel less like betrayal and more like oxygen. I told myself Seraphine and I had never named love. I told myself Marceline knew I was not free. I told myself my heart was allowed to be confused because my body had been owned too young. All true. All excuses. Then my heat came early. That was the beginning of the end. Omega heats are not romantic, not the way cheap stories make them sound. They are fever, hunger, pain, a body becoming weather. I had suppressants, but stress had weakened them. Cassian's threats were increasing. Seraphine's enemies were moving. Marceline had warned me the old council was asking questions about Vale's Omega. I should have locked myself away. Instead, I went to Seraphine first. She found me shaking in the safe apartment bathroom, sweating through my shirt, trying to open a pill bottle with hands that would not obey. Her scent hit me, and I nearly collapsed. "Leave," I gasped. "Elara." "Seraphine, leave." Her face changed when she understood. Heat, need, danger. She stepped back immediately, every muscle in her body rigid with restraint. "I will call a doctor." "No doctors, no records." "You need care. I need you to not make decisions for me." That stopped her. She stood in the doorway, breathing hard, fighting her alpha instincts so visibly it hurt to watch. "What do you want?" she asked. The question again. Always that impossible question. I reached for her. She came to me like surrender. What happened between us was ours, consented, chosen, full of trembling and fever and words repeated until they became anchors. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Say stop, and I stop." I know. Look at me. I am. You are safe. I want to be. For 2 days, Seraphine stayed, not as a queen, as a woman who wiped my face with cool cloths, fed me fruit with shaking fingers, and held herself back whenever my heat made me beg for more than I could safely choose. On the 3rd day, she had to leave. An attack at the docks. 3 dead, 5 missing. A message carved into a warehouse door. The North remembers. Seraphine did not want to go. Duty pulled her like a chain. "I will send Iona," she said. "No. You should not be alone." "I won't be." She misunderstood. Or maybe she did not want to understand. She kissed my forehead and left. By evening, my fever surged again, worse, sharper. I called Marcelline. Even now, I do not fully forgive myself for that, but I will not lie. I called her because I trusted her, because I wanted her, because my body was screaming and my heart had already made a ruin of loyalty. She arrived within 20 minutes, breathless, hair loose, eyes full of fear. The moment she saw me, she stopped at the door. "Tell me what you need," she said. "Not come here, not mine, not finally. Tell me what you need." So I told her, and she stayed. If Seraphine was a locked gate opening, Marcelline was a window unlatched in summer. She spoke to me through the fever. She told me I was not shameful, not ruined, not greedy for wanting care. She held me afterward while I cried, because some part of me knew I had crossed a line I could not uncross. When the heat broke, I woke alone. Marcelline had left a note on the pillow. "You are not a sin, but we must stop pretending no one will bleed." I folded the note and hid it inside a book. 3 weeks later, I missed my cycle. Then came the nausea, the dizziness, the smell of coffee turning my stomach. The way Seraphine's scent suddenly made me ache. The way Marceline's voice over the phone made my hand drift to my abdomen, before I understood why. I bought the test on a Tuesday. I took it in the staff bathroom at the glass chapel because I could not bear to do it at home. 2 lines appeared. I stared. The world narrowed. Pregnant. I laughed once. A broken, breathless sound. Then someone screamed in the club. A gunshot followed. Then another. I shoved the test into my pocket and opened the bathroom door to chaos. The glass chapel had become war. Women were running, tables overturned, blood on white marble, smoke from the east corridor. I saw Seraphine first, moving through violence like she had been born in it, gun in hand, face calm, her guards forming around her. Then I saw Marcelline near the opposite entrance, silver hair loose over one shoulder, white suit stained red at the cuff, her own women behind her. They had both come to the club, both armed, both betrayed. And between them, on the floor near the stage, lay Nadja, dead. The owner of the glass chapel, the woman who had known everyone's secrets. Her throat was cut. Pinned to her chest was a council seal. The old Alpha families had made their move. They had killed on neutral ground and made it look like one queen had attacked the other. Seraphine thought Marcelline did it. Marcelline thought Seraphine did it. And I, newly pregnant and shaking, was the only person who had seen a council guard leave through the back hallway moments before the shots began. I ran towards Seraphine because she was closest. A bullet shattered a mirror above me. She caught me and dragged me into the back room. That is where this story began. With her hands on my face, with the pregnancy test burning in my pocket, with Marcelline outside the door, with both queens ready to kill. When Marcelline broke into the room, Seraphine raised her gun. Marcelline raised hers. I stepped between them. Elara, Seraphine snapped. Move, Marcelline said, voice shaking. No. They stared at me as if I had gone mad. Maybe I had. I saw who killed Nadja, I said. Both froze. It was not either of you. It was the council. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Marceline's face went very still. Are you certain? Marcelline asked. Yes. Another shot cracked outside. Seraphine grabbed my wrist. We leave. Now. Marcelline stepped closer. She comes with me. Seraphine's alpha presence slammed into the room. She is under my protection, Marceline's answered, colder and brighter. She is not your property. Their scents collided so violently, my knees weakened. And then, the worst possible thing happened. The pregnancy test fell from my pocket. It hit the floor between them. White plastic. 2 dark lines. No one moved. No one breathed. Marcelline saw it first. Her lips parted. Seraphine looked down, then at me. I watched understanding arrive in her eyes piece by piece. The nausea, the fear, the scent change, the way I had been shaking before the first shot. Elara, she whispered. Marcelline bent slowly and picked up the test. Her hand trembled once. Only once. Is it? She stopped, could not finish. Seraphine did it for her. Mine? The word was not possessive. Not yet. It was raw, almost childlike. I looked at both of them. This was the moment, the one every lie had been walking toward. I don't know, I said. The room changed. Seraphine went white. Marcelline closed her eyes. Outside, women were still shouting. Sirens wailed in the distance. The city was splitting open around us. But inside that room, the real war began. Seraphine looked at Marcelline. When? Marceline's eyes opened slowly. Do not ask questions you are not prepared to survive. Seraphine moved toward her. I caught her sleeve. Don't. She stopped because it was me, but her voice when she spoke was deadly. You touched her during heat? Marcelline flinched, not from guilt, from the accusation. She called me. Seraphine turned to me. That hurt more than anger. Her face, the betrayal in it, the heartbreak. Elara. My name sounded different in her mouth, like something she had dropped and could not pick up without bleeding. I'm sorry, I whispered. Marceline's expression broke too, because she knew then that I had not told Seraphine, that she had been a secret inside a secret. Seraphine stepped back. The distance felt like a door closing. Then another explosion shook the club. Dust fell from the ceiling. Whatever personal disaster we were standing in would have to wait. The council had trapped us all. Seraphine became queen again in one breath. East exit is compromised, she said. Marcelline nodded, wiping emotion from her face like blood from a blade. North stairwell leads to the alley. They will expect that. Then we use the old theater tunnel. Seraphine looked sharply at her. You know about that? Marcelline smiled without joy. I know many things you think are yours. For a second, I thought Seraphine would start the fight all over. Then she looked at my stomach. Just briefly. Everything shifted. Move, she said. They got me out together. That was the first time I saw what they could be when they were not trying to destroy each other. Seraphine cleared the path. Marcelline watched the shadows. Seraphine used force. Marcelline used timing. One broke locks, the other knew which doors were never locked in the first place. They moved like old music, like women who had once trusted each other deeply enough to become dangerous in the same rhythm. We escaped through a tunnel beneath the opera district and emerged in a closed laundromat 3 blocks away. I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. Marcelline reached for me first. Seraphine stepped between us. Don't. The word cracked. Not command. Pain. Marceline's hand dropped. I wrapped my arms around myself. I can walk? Neither believed me. Both let me pretend. Outside, their guards formed a perimeter in the rain. Seraphine turned to me. You will come to the East Safe House. Marcelline laughed softly. There it is. Seraphine did not look at her. She needs medical care. She needs a choice. She needs to not be killed because of what she carries. What she carries, Marcelline said, voice rising, is not a shipment under your control. Seraphine finally turned. And you think taking her to the north makes her free? I think asking her where she wants to go would be a revolutionary start. They both looked at me. Too late, but they looked. Rain slid down my face like tears I did not have time to cry. I said slowly, to go somewhere neither of you owns. Silence. Then Marcelline nodded. Seraphine's jaw tightened. There is no neutral place left. Yes, I said. There is. That was how I ended up at Iona's bookshop, with 2 mafia queens sitting at opposite ends of the kitchen table, while a retired beta poured tea like she was hosting a very tense book club. Iona looked at the pregnancy test, then at me, then at them. Well, she said, that's inconvenient. Marcelline blinked. Seraphine rubbed her temple. I almost laughed. Almost. Iona placed biscuits on a plate. No one bleeds on my floor. No alpha voice in my kitchen. No guns on the table. And if either of you upsets the pregnant girl, I will shoot you in the leg. Seraphine said, Iona. Iona pointed at her. Especially you. Marceline's mouth twitched. Iona turned to her. You too, Moonbeam. Marceline's mouth closed. For the first time that night, I breathed. We made rules before dawn. No claims, no public statements, no retaliation without proof. No doctor either queen controlled. No moving me without consent. No discussing paternity as if I were not in the room. Seraphine struggled with every rule. Marcelline accepted them faster, but I could see her mind turning, finding loopholes made of silk. I was tired enough to hate them both. And still, when I went upstairs to sleep, I wished one of them would follow. Neither did. That hurt too. In the morning, Seraphine was gone. She left a note. Not elegant, not romantic. Just her handwriting, sharp and controlled. I am angry. I am hurt. I am still yours if you want protection without forgiveness. Eat breakfast. Under it, Iona had written, she burned the eggs. Marcelline left later. Her note was tucked inside my coat pocket. I will not ask you to choose while you are afraid. But I will ask, one day, when fear is not speaking for you. I kept both notes, because I am weak, because I loved them, because love does not vanish just because it has become impossible. The weeks that followed were the most dangerous of my life, Not because bullets flew every day. They did not. Danger became quieter, more intimate. A car idling too long outside the bookshop. A woman in a gray coat watching from across the street. A dead rose left on the doorstep. A letter addressed to my birth name. Cassian had joined the council. Or perhaps he had always belonged to it. That was the horror of powerful men. Sometimes they were not new threats, just old rot finally showing through the wall. The letter contained one sentence. An Omega who forgets her first owner can be reminded. I did not tell Seraphine at first. I told Marcelline. That was another kind of betrayal, maybe. But Marcelline arrived without guards, sat beside me on the floor of the storage room, and read the letter twice. Her face did not change. "What did he do to you?" she asked. I stared at the shelves of old books. Everything that doesn't leave proof. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, the blue was colder. "Elara, listen to me carefully. Men like Cassian rely on shame because shame keeps witnesses quiet. Whatever he did, it belongs to him, not you. I know that." "No," her voice softened. "You have heard it. That is not the same as knowing." I began to cry, angrily, silently. She did not reach for me. She waited. When I leaned toward her, she opened her arms. I rested my head against her shoulder and hated how safe it felt. "He made me feel like wanting anything was dirty," I whispered. Marceline's hand moved carefully over my hair. "Then we will make wanting holy again." That sentence almost destroyed me. Later that day, Seraphine found out. Not from me, from Iona, who apparently believed secrets were acceptable only until they became stupid. Seraphine arrived like a storm contained in skin. She did not yell. That made it worse. "You should have told me," she said. "I told someone." Her face tightened. "Yes, I noticed." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Act jealous when I was terrified." The words landed. Seraphine looked away. For a moment, the queen disappeared again. "I do not know where to put the jealousy," she admitted. That stunned me. She stood by the window, rain-gray light across her face. "I want to hate her," she said. "It would be easier." "But she came when you called. She kept you safe. She did not force you to come to me. I cannot punish her for being what I was not in that moment." My throat tightened. "You were hurt. I am still hurt. I'm sorry." "I know." That was not forgiveness, but it was something. Then she looked at me. "Did Cassian touch you after you ran?" "No." "Will you let me help end him?" "Not if ending means killing." Seraphine's mouth hardened. "Elara." "No, I mean it. He made enough of my life about fear. I won't give him my child's first story, too." She looked at my stomach. I was not showing yet. Still, her gaze changed. "He does not get near you," she said. "No." "He does not speak to you alone." "No." "He does not breathe the same air as you if I can help it." Despite everything, I smiled. That one sounds difficult to enforce. "Do not tempt me." For the first time in weeks, something almost warm passed between us. Then she stepped closer. Slowly. "May I?" she asked. I knew what she meant. My breath caught. I nodded. Seraphine knelt in front of me, not dramatically, not like a proposal. Like the floor was simply where she needed to be to ask permission from the life inside me. She placed one hand, barely touching, over my lower abdomen. Her lashes lowered. For several seconds, she did not speak. Then she whispered, "I am sorry your beginning is war." I broke. I touched her hair, and she leaned into my palm like the motion cost her pride and gave her peace. That was the problem. Every time I thought I could choose one, the other showed me a piece of herself that made leaving feel like cutting into living tissue. The doctor was named Dr. Althea Moon. She was a beta, middle-aged, direct, utterly unimpressed by both queens. I loved her immediately. At my first appointment, Seraphine and Marcelline both came. This was not my idea. They arrived separately and pretended not to be surprised by each other. "Doctor," Moon looked over her glasses at them. "Are both of you necessary?" "Yes," Seraphine said. "No," I said. Marcelline smiled. "Emotionally, unfortunately." Dr. Moon sighed. "Fine, but if either of you alpha posters in my exam room, you wait outside." Seraphine looked offended. Marcelline looked delighted. Then came the ultrasound. Cold gel, dim room, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear the machine. Then there it was. A sound. Fast. Tiny. Impossible. The baby's heartbeat. I stopped breathing. Seraphine's hand gripped the chair. Marcelline covered her mouth. Dr. Moon smiled gently. Strong heartbeat. Strong. The word entered the room and changed all of us. Until that moment, the baby had been a secret, a danger, a question. Now it was a rhythm, a life insisting on itself. I cried. Seraphine looked at me like she wanted to hold me, but did not know if she had the right. Marcelline simply asked, "May I?" I nodded. She took my hand. Then, after a second, Seraphine took the other. I lay there between two enemies, listening to the heartbeat of a child who might belong to either of them. And for the first time, I imagined a future that was not only survival. That hope lasted 4 days. Then Cassian sent the video. It arrived on every major Alpha Family channel at 8 p.m. A recording of me from years ago. Younger, terrified, wearing Cassian's stunt bracelet, kneeling beside his chair at a private dinner. The caption read, "The Omega carrying the future of the East and North was once bonded property. What else is she hiding?" I watched it once, then threw up until my throat burned. By midnight, the city knew. Not everything. Enough. Reporters gathered outside the bookshop. Council spokeswomen called for clarity regarding the unborn child's lineage. Omega rights groups defended me. Alpha traditionalists called me unstable. Someone leaked my birth name. Someone else leaked speculation that Seraphine had stolen me from Cassian. Another claimed Marcelline had planted me to seduce Seraphine. The baby became a headline before it had fingers. I locked myself in the bathroom. Not because I wanted to die, because I wanted one room in the world where nobody could look at me. Seraphine broke the lock. I screamed at her. She froze in the doorway. I was on the floor, shaking, wrapped in a towel, furious and humiliated, and so tired of being seen wrong. "Get out," I sobbed. Her face went pale. She stepped back immediately. I'm sorry. The apology came fast, real, but I was too far gone. You don't get to break doors because you're scared. I heard you fall. You still don't get to. She swallowed. You're right. That stopped me. Cassian would have told me I was hysterical. Seraphine took the wound and did not hand it back. I will wait outside, she said. She did. For 40 minutes. Then I opened the door. She was sitting on the floor across the hall, knees bent, hands clasped loosely, looking nothing like a queen. I hate this, I whispered. I know. They're talking about me like I'm dirty. You are not. I know. No, Seraphine said softly. You have heard it. A faint, broken laugh escaped me. Marcelline said the same thing. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. She is right. I slid down the wall opposite her. We sat there on the floor while the world devoured my name outside. I should have told you about her, I said. Yes. I was afraid. Yes. I loved you. Her eyes lifted. The hallway became very quiet. Loved? She asked. I cried harder. Love. I love you. I love her too, and I know that makes me terrible. Seraphine's expression twisted. For a moment, I thought she would leave. Instead, she said, It makes you human. I betrayed you. Yes. The answer hurt, but she continued, and I built protection around you so tightly it left no room for confession. That does not absolve you, but it condemns me too. I stared at her. You sound like you've been talking to a therapist. Iona yelled at me for 20 minutes. I laughed through tears. Seraphine almost smiled. Then she sobered. Elara, I do not know what we become from here, but I know this. Cassian released that video to return you to shame. We will not let him. We? Her gaze held mine. If you allow it. The next morning, Marcelline held a press conference. No one expected it. Seraphine certainly did not. Marcelline stood on the steps of the North Circle Foundation in an ivory coat, silver hair pinned back, face calm as cameras flashed. She did not mention the baby at first. She spoke about Omega contracts, about coercion, about how powerful families used old laws and private clinics to trap vulnerable Omegas under the language of protection. Then she looked directly into the cameras. Elara Wynn is not a scandal. She is a survivor. Any person who uses images of her abuse to shame her reveals nothing about her and everything about themselves. I watched from the bookshop kitchen, one hand over my mouth. Seraphine stood beside me, silent. On screen, a reporter shouted, Lady Draven, are you romantically involved with Miss Wynn? Marcelline paused. My heart stopped. She could deny it. She should deny it. Instead, she said, Miss Wynn's private life is not public property. But I will say this. I care for her deeply. And unlike the men trying to humiliate her, I am not ashamed of that. The room erupted. Seraphine walked out. I found her in the alley behind the shop, standing in the rain without a coat. She did the right thing, I said. I know. You're angry. Yes. At her? Seraphine turned. At myself, because I should have done it first. I did not know what to say. She looked up at the wet sky. I was planning legal moves, security moves, retaliation moves. She saw the wound and covered it with her body in public. Rain ran down her face, Or maybe not only rain. I hate that I respect her for it. I stepped closer. Seraphine looked at me. "Do you want her?" she asked. The question was quiet, devastating. "Yes," I whispered. Her eyes closed. I forced myself to continue. "And you. That is not sustainable. I know. Do you?" "No." A broken smile crossed her mouth. "At least you are honest." Finally. She reached for me, stopped herself, then asked, "May I hold you?" I nodded. She wrapped her arms around me in the rain, and I felt the tremor she would never allow anyone else to see. "I do not share well," she whispered. "I know." "I do not forgive easily." "I know." "But I would rather suffer the truth than be comforted by another lie." That was Seraphine's love. Hard, imperfect, but real enough to bleed. The council made its final move 2 weeks later. They kidnapped Iona. That was when everything changed. Until then, the conflict had been public shame, legal pressure, threats, whispers. Taking Iona made it personal. They left her shotgun on the bookshop counter. Beside it, a note. "Bring the Omega to the old courthouse by midnight. No queens, no guards, or the Beta dies." I found Seraphine reading the note. Her expression told me someone would die that night. Marcelline arrived 10 minutes later. For once, she did not make a remark. She read the note, then looked at me. "No, I'm going." Both queens spoke at once. "No!" I laughed once, bitterly. "You two need to practice harmony on less annoying words." Seraphine stepped toward me. "Elara, they will take you. They already took Iona because of me." "Because of them," Marcelline said sharply. "Because I exist in the middle of this." Seraphine's alpha voice entered her tone.
You are pregnant.
I felt it press against my skin. Not enough to command, enough to remind me she could. Her face changed the moment she realized. I stepped back. "Do not." She looked stricken. "Elara." "No. If you use alpha pressure on me again, even by accident, I walk out and neither of you follows." Marcelline looked at Seraphine, and for once there was no triumph in it, only warning. Seraphine bowed her head. "I am sorry." I believed her. I was still angry. Good. Anger kept me upright. "We are going to save Iona," I said, "but we do it my way." Marcelline folded her arms. "Your way involves walking into a trap? My way involves letting them think I am." Seraphine's eyes narrowed. I told them the plan. Not all of it. Enough. For once, they listened. The old courthouse had been abandoned for 20 years, a stone building with broken windows and vines crawling over the columns like nature trying to strangle law. I arrived at 11:57 p.m., alone. Or appearing alone. My hands were visible, my coat loose enough to hide the recorder taped under my collar. The baby fluttered low in my stomach, too small to kick hard, but present. A reminder. A witness. Cassian waited in the main hall. So did the council leader, Octavia Sloane. She was 70, maybe older, with white hair braided down her back and rings on every finger. Her alpha scent was dry and bitter, like old smoke. Iona sat tied to a chair beside the judge's bench, bruised but alive. Relief nearly dropped me to my knees. Cassian smiled. My little Omega finally remembered how to obey. I did not answer. That bothered him. Good. Octavia looked at my stomach. So small a thing to cause so much disorder. My child is not disorder. No, your child is opportunity. East and North blood both near enough to claim. A bridge, perhaps. Or a leash. The recorder warmed against my skin. Keep talking, I thought. Marcelline had taught me that powerful people loved explaining themselves when they believed the room belonged to them. Seraphine had taught me to let enemies mistake silence for weakness. I used both. You leaked the video, I said. Octavia smiled. Truth belongs to whoever releases it first. You worked with Cassian. Cassian owned a contract. You ran. That created legal ambiguity. I laughed. The sound echoed. I was not a misplaced asset. Cassian moved closer. You were mine. For the first time, I looked directly at him without shaking. No. His face hardened. There he was, not civilized, not patient, ugly under the polish. You think those queens love you? He said. They love what you carry. They love the idea of saving something. Once the baby comes, you will be exactly what you always were. And what is that? A womb with a pretty face. Iona made a furious sound through her gag. Octavia did not correct him. That mattered. The recorder caught everything. I touched my stomach. My daughter will hear this one day, I said softly. Cassian laughed. Daughter? You don't even know whose blood she carries. No, I said, but I know whose shame she won't inherit. That was the signal. The courthouse lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then the doors blew open. Seraphine entered from the front with East guards in black. Marcelline came from the gallery above with North women in white. For one impossible second, the two armies moved together, not against each other, against the council. Cassian grabbed me. His arm locked around my throat. A blade touched my stomach. The room froze. There are moments fear becomes so complete it turns clear. I could see Seraphine below, gun raised, face white with terror. I could see Marcelline above, one hand gripping the balcony rail, all softness gone. I could feel Cassian breathing against my ear. You see, he whispered. Still mine. My body remembered him. The old terror, the locked rooms, the obedience. Then the baby moved, small, stubborn, alive. Something in me rose. Not alpha power, not strength like theirs. Something older. Omega fury. The kind born from generations of being underestimated by people who confuse softness with surrender. I drove my heel into Cassian's foot, slammed my head back into his jaw, and twisted the way Iona had taught me. The blade cut my coat, but not skin. Seraphine fired, not at him, at the chandelier chain above. Crystal crashed between us and the council guards. Marcelline leapt from the gallery stairs with terrifying elegance and struck Cassian hard enough to send him to the floor. He reached for the knife. I picked it up first. For 1 second, I stood over him holding the blade. He looked afraid, truly afraid. The room waited. Seraphine said quietly, Elara. Marcelline said nothing. Cassian stared up at me. You won't, he said. He meant kill him. He was right. I lowered the knife. His mouth curved. Then I kicked him in the face. Hard. Once. His head snapped sideways. Iona made an approving noise through the gag. I dropped the knife and stepped back. No, I said, breathing hard. But I will testify. Cassian was arrested before dawn. So was Octavia. So were 6 council members, 3 judges, 2 clinic directors, and a police commander who had apparently spent 20 years confusing law with ownership. The recordings helped. The ledgers helped more. But what truly broke the council was the women. Omegas who came forward, betas who had carried messages, former guards who had watched too much, nurses who had falsified heat records under threat, accountants who knew where bodies were paid for. The city did not change overnight, but the old families learned something they should have learned long ago. Invisible women hear everything, and one day, they speak. After the courthouse, I bled. Not much. Enough to terrify everyone. Seraphine carried me to the car while Marcelline called Dr. Moon and threatened traffic itself. At the clinic, I was ordered to rest. The baby was fine. I was not. Not emotionally, not physically, not in any way that could be fixed by tea and soft voices. For days, I slept. When I woke, one queen or the other was always nearby. Never both at first. They had made a schedule. Of course they had. Seraphine took nights. Marcelline took mornings. Afternoons were apparently neutral territory, supervised by Iona, who had survived kidnapping with bruises and a renewed commitment to insulting powerful people. One evening, I woke to find Seraphine sitting beside the bed, reading a baby book, with the expression of someone studying enemy strategy. "You are holding it upside down," I whispered. She looked at the book, then at me. "I knew that." "No, you didn't." "No." I smiled. Her eyes softened. Then the smile faded, because love between us had become a room full of things unsaid. "Are you afraid of me?" she asked. The question hurt. "Sometimes." She nodded like she deserved it. "I am afraid of me too." I reached for her hand. She stared at our fingers. "I do not want to become another person who thinks loving you gives me rights over you." "Then don't." Her mouth trembled. Just once. "I am trying." "I know. I hate trying. I prefer succeeding." A laugh escaped me. She looked offended again. God help me. I loved that look. On another morning, Marcelline brought breakfast and a stack of letters. "What are those?" I asked. "Apologies." "From who?" "People who publicly insulted you and now realize I know where their money sleeps." "Marcelline." "What? They are sincere now." I laughed despite myself. She sat on the edge of the bed. Her humor faded. "I need to ask you something selfish." "That sounds ominous." "It is." She looked down at her hands. "If the baby is Seraphine's, do I lose you?" My chest tightened. "I don't know." She nodded. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, almost angrily. "I wanted to be noble," she said. "I practiced sentences about respecting your choice. I meant them. I do mean them. But when I imagine you building a family with her while I become a lesson you survived, you are not a lesson. Then what am I?" The answer came before fear could stop it. Home. But so is she. And I hate myself for that. Marcelline closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked unbearably sad. "Maybe home is not always a single door." That sentence stayed with me. For weeks. Through hearings, through doctor visits, through the slow swelling of my belly, through headlines that began to change from scandal to investigation, through Cassian's lawyers claiming I had fabricated everything. through 6 more Omegas testifying after seeing me do it, through Seraphine and Marcelline learning to be in the same room without turning the air into knives. It was not romantic in the pretty sense. It was painful, messy, full of jealousy and boundaries and conversations that left all of us exhausted. I told them I would not be shared like territory. They told me they did not want that, then proved it badly, then apologized, then tried again. Seraphine struggled when Marcelline touched my back. Marcelline struggled when Seraphine knew how I took my tea. I struggled when either of them looked wounded, because I had spent too long believing other people's pain was my responsibility to fix. Dr. Moon recommended therapy. Iona said she had been recommending that since the beginning, but nobody listened, because apparently queens preferred dramatic suffering. We went. Separately. Together. Awkwardly. The therapist was an elderly Omega named Morel, who had absolutely no fear of alphas. In our first joint session, Seraphine said, "I do not see how discussing feelings prevents danger." Morel looked at her. "Unregulated feelings have caused more wars than bullets, Lady Vale." Marcelline laughed. Seraphine glared. I fell a little more in love with all of them and hated myself for it. By the 5th month, my belly showed clearly. The city had opinions. It always did. Some called the baby a miracle. Some called her a threat. Some said she would unite East and North. Some said she would inherit a curse. I stopped reading comments after someone suggested the child should be taken by the state for stability. Seraphine nearly bought the newspaper to fire the columnist. Marcelline actually did buy the columnist's debt and donated it to an Omega legal fund in his name. I pretended to disapprove. Privately, I laughed for 10 minutes. The paternity question remained. Dr. Moon explained that because both women were high-dominance alphas and because my heat had been medically unstable, early testing might be complicated. There were rare cases, she said, where alpha imprint markers overlapped enough that simple prenatal testing could be unclear. Seraphine listened like she wanted to interrogate biology. Marcelline asked practical questions. I stared at the ultrasound picture and wondered how something so small could already carry so much expectation. "Do you want to know before birth?" Dr. Moon asked me. Not them. Me. I looked at Seraphine, then Marcelline. Both were watching me with too much hope and too much fear. "No," I said. Seraphine inhaled. Marcelline looked down. "No," I repeated, stronger. "Not yet. I need to know this baby is mine before the world tries to make her yours." That was final. To their credit, they accepted it. Not easily, but they did. The 6th month was when Seraphine kissed Marcelline. Not romantically, not exactly. It happened after an attack at the North Clinic. Council loyalists tried to burn records and blame East operatives. Marcelline went inside before the fire crews arrived because 2 Omega patients were trapped on the 2nd floor. Seraphine arrived moments later. She did not hesitate. They both entered the burning building. I was not there, thank God. I saw the footage later. Smoke pouring from shattered windows. Seraphine carrying one patient, Marcelline carrying another. Then part of the ceiling collapsed. For 8 seconds, neither came out. 8 seconds is long enough to imagine a future disappearing. Then Seraphine emerged, half dragging Marcelline, both covered in ash, coughing, furious. Alive. Outside, in front of cameras and guards and firefighters, Marcelline swayed. Seraphine caught her. Marcelline said something. No audio caught it. Seraphine grabbed her face and kissed her forehead. hard, desperate, furious, like hatred finally remembered it had once been grief. When I saw the video, I understood. Whatever had happened between them 12 years ago, it had not begun with hate. You cannot hate that deeply without having loved something first. That night, Marcelline came to my apartment with a bandaged arm. Seraphine arrived later with smoke still in her hair. They stood in my living room like two ghosts from the same haunted house. I pointed at the couch. "Sit." They sat. Iona from the kitchen muttered, "Miracles happen." I looked at them. What happened 12 years ago? Neither spoke. I waited. Pregnancy had made me less patient with dramatic silence. Finally, Seraphine said, "We were allies." Marcelline's voice followed. "We were more than allies." Seraphine looked at her. Marcelline looked at the floor. "My younger sister, Celeste, was an Omega," Seraphine said. I knew the name from old rumors. Celeste Vale, dead at 19. "She wanted out of the families," Seraphine continued. "Marcelline was helping her disappear." My heart tightened. Marcelline's eyes filled. "The council found out," she said. "Someone betrayed the root. Celeste was taken." Seraphine's face became stone. "They sent her back, dead." Silence. Even Iona stopped moving in the kitchen. "I thought Marcelline gave them the root," Seraphine said. Marcelline whispered, "I thought Seraphine changed the plan without telling me." "For 12 years," I said slowly. "You blamed each other." Neither answered. They did not need to. Grief had built a city-wide war. I touched my stomach. "And now?" Seraphine's voice was barely audible. "Now I think the council wanted us divided." Marcelline wiped her cheek. "And we let them have it." That night changed them. Not suddenly, not magically, but something old cracked. They began investigating Celeste's death together, at first through intermediaries, then in the same room, then late at night at my kitchen table, files spread around herbal tea and crackers because I was always hungry. The truth emerged slowly. Octavia had ordered the kidnapping. Cassian had transported Celeste. A clinic director had falsified her death record. Celeste had not died immediately. She had survived 3 days in council custody, long enough to give birth. That was the secret no one expected. Celeste had a child, a daughter, hidden, sold under a false adoption. The room went silent when Marcelline found the record. Seraphine stood so abruptly the chair fell. "No." Her voice was not denial. It was hope trying not to exist. We searched for 3 weeks. The child was 12 now. Living under the name Mira with a beta couple in another city, unaware of her bloodline, unaware that 2 mafia queens and 1 pregnant Omega were quietly rearranging the earth to find her safely. Seraphine did not storm in. I was proud of her for that. She wanted to. Every instinct in her screamed claim, protect, retrieve. But she listened when I said, "She is a child, not evidence." Marcelline said, "We approach through legal channels." Seraphine looked like legal channels caused her physical pain, but she agreed. When Seraphine finally met Mira, I went with her, not because I belonged in that moment, because she asked. Mira was small for 12, with dark curls and Celeste's eyes, according to Seraphine. She met us in a supervised office with her adoptive parents nearby.
Seraphine stood frozen. Mira looked at her suspiciously. "Are you the scary aunt?" Seraphine blinked.
I pressed my lips together.
The social worker coughed. Mira narrowed her eyes.
Because they said I had a scary aunt. Seraphine slowly crouched to her level. I am trying to be less scary.
Mira considered this.
You're failing.
I had to turn away. Seraphine gave me a look. Then, to my shock, she smiled at the child. A real smile. Small. Devastating. I will try harder. Afterward, in the car, Seraphine cried, silently, one hand over her mouth. I held the other. She did not ask me to forget. I did not pretend not to see. That was the first time I thought maybe our child could be born into something better than fear. The final confrontation came in my 8th month, because old power never dies gracefully. Cassian escaped custody during a transport arranged by council loyalists. He did not run. He came for me. Of course he did. Men like him do not understand freedom. They think if something escapes, it must be reclaimed or destroyed.
It was snowing that night. Soft snow, rare for the city, turning the streets quiet and silver. I was at the safe apartment with Iona, trying to fold baby clothes while failing not to cry over how tiny the socks were. Seraphine was meeting federal agents. Marcelline was at the courthouse giving testimony. For the first time in weeks, the building felt calm. Then the power went out. Iona reached for the shotgun. The window shattered. Smoke filled the room. I remember coughing. I remember Iona shouting. I remember hands grabbing me from behind, a cloth over my mouth, my belly heavy and my body too slow. I woke in a church. Not a real church. An old council bonding hall dressed up with candles and white flowers. My wrists were tied, my ankles too. Cassian stood before me in a dark suit. He looked pleased. That frightened me more than rage would have. "You always did look pretty in white," he said. I looked down. He had dressed me in a white gown, a bonding gown. My stomach rose beneath it. For one terrible second, I could not breathe. "No," I whispered. "Yes," he said gently. "The council is gone, but symbols matter. If I rebond you publicly before the child is born, any claim through you becomes legally contested. Vale and Draven lose control. I regain what was mine." "You're insane." "I am traditional." "You are nothing." He slapped me, not hard enough to break skin, hard enough to remind my body. I tasted blood. The baby moved sharply. My fear turned to fury. Cassian leaned close. "They made you arrogant." "No," I whispered. "They made me remember." His eyes hardened. He lifted a bonding collar from a velvet box. Silver, old-fashioned, legal in no court now, but symbolic enough for the old families who had gathered in the shadows of the hall. They emerged one by one. Council remnants, traditionalists, alphas who had lost money when the Omega contracts burned, women and men dressed in mourning black, watching me like I was a ceremony instead of a person. Cassian touched the collar to my throat. I spat in his face. The hall went silent. His expression twisted. He raised his hand again. This time, someone caught his wrist. Not Seraphine. Not Marcelline. Iona. Bruised, furious, bleeding from her temple, shotgun in her other hand. "I told you," she said. No one upsets the pregnant girl. Then, chaos. The front doors exploded inward. Seraphine entered through snow and smoke like vengeance wearing black. Marcelline came through the side aisle in white, eyes blazing. For once, nobody could tell which queen was more terrifying. Cassian grabbed me, collar still in hand. "Stop or she dies." Everything froze. Seraphine's gun remained raised. Marceline's hand tightened around her blade. Iona cursed softly. Cassian pressed a knife to my throat. His mouth brushed my ear. "You see? They will always stop for you. That is why you are useful." I looked at Seraphine. Her face was white. I looked at Marcelline. Tears stood in her eyes, but her hand was steady. I looked down at my stomach. My daughter moved, strong, alive, waiting. I was tired of being useful. I was tired of being saved. I was tired of men writing endings on my skin. So I did the one thing no one expected. I leaned into the knife, just enough for the blade to nick my skin. A bead of blood slid down my throat. Cassian startled and loosened his grip. Seraphine fired. The bullet struck his shoulder. Marcelline moved at the same time, crossing the aisle like silver lightning, driving her blade through Cassian's sleeve into the wooden pillar behind him, pinning his arm without killing him. Iona shot the chandelier. Again with the chandeliers. Apparently this family had themes. Glass and candles crashed down, scattering the council remnants. Seraphine reached me first. Her hands hovered over the ropes, shaking. "May I?" she asked. Even then, even there, I sobbed. "Yes, you impossible woman. Untie me." Marcelline laughed through tears while cutting the ankle bindings. Then my body clenched. Pain rolled through me so violently I cried out. All three women froze. "No!" I gasped. "No, no, no!" Another contraction. Too early. Too strong. Dr. Moon later said trauma triggered it. At the time, all I knew was pain. Seraphine lifted me. Marcelline cleared the path. Iona covered us with the shotgun. Cassian shouted something from the floor. I did not look back. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. My daughter was born 6 weeks early during the snowstorm. The hospital became a fortress. East guards outside, North guards inside. Federal agents at the elevators. Iona threatening nurses until Dr. Moon banned her from the delivery room unless she promised to stop calling people decorative idiots. Seraphine stayed on my right, Marcelline on my left. Neither cared anymore who saw. Labor was not beautiful. It was pain and blood and terror and me swearing I would never forgive either of them for being alphas near me while this was happening. Marcelline cried openly. Seraphine kept whispering, "You are doing it. Elara, you are doing it." At one point, I grabbed her collar and snarled, "If you say that again, I will bite you." She nodded solemnly, then said it again 10 minutes later. I did bite her. Not hard. Marcelline laughed. I threatened to bite her, too. Then the room shifted. Doctors moved faster. The baby's heartbeat dipped. For one endless minute, nobody spoke in full sentences. Seraphine's hand tightened around mine. Marcelline pressed her forehead to my temple. "Stay with us," she whispered. "Both of you." I prayed. I do not know to whom. Maybe to every Omega woman who had survived before me. Maybe to Celeste. Maybe to the tiny, furious life trying to enter a world that had not earned her. Then she cried. Small, sharp, angry. alive. My daughter. They placed her on my chest, wrapped in a blanket too large for her. She was red-faced, tiny, furious, and perfect. I touched her cheek with one finger. "Hi," I whispered. She stopped crying, just for a second, like she knew me. Seraphine turned away, shoulders shaking. Marcelline covered her mouth and sobbed. I looked at them both over my daughter's head. All the war, all the lies, all the blood. And here she was. Not a claim, not a treaty, not an heir. A baby. Mine. First and always. "What's her name?" Dr. Moon asked softly. I had chosen it weeks before. Not from a queen, not from bloodline records, not from any alpha family tree. "Leora," I said. "Leora Wynne." Seraphine looked at me. Marcelline, too. Wynne. My chosen name. My daughter's first inheritance would be mine, not theirs. They understood. Seraphine bowed her head. Marcelline smiled through tears. "Leora," she whispered. Light. The paternity results came 3 weeks later. By then, Leora was still in the neonatal unit, growing stronger every day. Seraphine had learned to hold her with one hand supporting her head and the other covering her tiny back like a shield. Marcelline sang lullabies in 3 languages and pretended not to panic every time Leora sneezed. I pumped milk, slept in fragments, cried often, and discovered that motherhood was mostly terror wearing love's face. Dr. Moon asked whether I wanted the results alone. I said no. Then yes, then no again. Finally, the 3 of us sat in her office. The envelope lay on the desk. Seraphine stared at it like an enemy. Marcelline looked serene, which meant she was moments from emotional collapse. I opened it, read, stopped, read again. Then laughed so suddenly, Dr. Moon looked concerned. "Well?" Seraphine demanded. I looked at them. "The test says Leora carries dominant imprint markers from both of you." Silence. Marcelline blinked. Seraphine's lips parted. Dr. Moon cleared her throat. "It is rare, but not impossible in high-dominance alpha pairings during an unstable omega heat cycle. Biologically, one of you contributed the primary genetic material, but the imprint bond is dual. In legal and social alpha terms, she is both," I said. Dr. Moon nodded. "In a way, yes." Marcelline sat back. Seraphine whispered, "That is not scientifically satisfying." I laughed harder. Marcelline looked at Seraphine. "Are you upset biology refused to obey you?" "Yes," Seraphine said. That made Marcelline laugh. Then Seraphine laughed too. Quietly at first, then helplessly. And just like that, the question that had almost started a war became absurd. Leora belonged to both bloodlines, and neither queen could claim her without also accepting the other. Fate, apparently, had a sense of humor and a taste for revenge. The legal battle took months, not for custody. I made that clear immediately. No one was fighting me for my daughter. Not Seraphine, not Marcelline, not the state, not any remaining family council. The battle was for protection, for names, for inheritance shields, for privacy, for the right to keep Leora from becoming a symbol before she could even lift her head. Seraphine wanted to erase every record. Marcelline wanted to control every narrative. I wanted my daughter to have a normal childhood, which made both queens stare at me like I had proposed raising her on the moon. "We can provide normal," Marcelline said. I looked around the penthouse safe room where we were meeting with 6 lawyers, 3 guards, and a former federal agent. "Can you?" Seraphine frowned. "We can provide safety. Safety is not the same as normal." They both hated that, because it was true. So we compromised. Leora would live with me, in a real home, not a fortress, not a penthouse, not an estate. A townhouse near the river with too many exits for Seraphine to complain about, and enough charm for Marcelline to call it acceptable with tragic curtains. Seraphine and Marcelline would have legal guardianship roles, structured carefully, publicly vague but privately binding. No one would announce paternity. No one would call Leora an heir. No one would put her face in the papers. If the city wanted a symbol, it could find one elsewhere. My daughter would have bedtime stories, messy breakfasts, music lessons if she wanted them, self-defense lessons when she was old enough, because Seraphine refused to negotiate on that, and, honestly, neither did I. And love. Complicated love, but real. As for the 3 of us, that took longer. Much longer. There was no sudden happy ending where jealousy vanished and trauma became poetry. Some days, Seraphine could not bear watching Marcelline make me laugh. Some days, Marcelline went quiet when Leora settled faster in Seraphine's arms. Some days I felt guilty for needing either of them. Some days, I wanted to run, just because happiness felt like another kind of trap. We fought, we apologized, we went back to therapy. Morel bought a larger notebook. Once during a session, she looked at all 3 of us and said, "You are trying to build a family using tools designed for war. Put them down." Seraphine said, "Which tools specifically?" Morel stared at her. "All of them." It became a joke, a serious one. When Seraphine tried to solve emotional discomfort by hiring security, I would say, "Tool." When Marcelline tried to manipulate a conversation into elegance instead of honesty, I would say, "Tool." When I tried to disappear because being loved by 2 powerful women felt too dangerous, they would both say softly, "Tool." Healing was humiliating. Nobody tells you that. They make it sound graceful. It is not. It is noticing the same wound ruin a good day for the 10th time and choosing to speak instead of bleed on someone who did not cut you. But slowly, we changed. Seraphine learned not every fear required a wall. Sometimes it required a chair beside the crib at 2 a.m. while Leora refused to sleep. Marcelline learned not every pain needed to be made beautiful. Sometimes it needed to be ugly and named. I learned that being loved did not mean being owned. Sometimes it meant being witnessed while I made choices no one else liked. The first time Leora smiled, all 3 of us were there. By accident. Seraphine had come early. Marcelline had stayed late. I was on the couch, exhausted, wearing a shirt stained with milk, hair a disaster, eyes burning from lack of sleep. Leora looked up from my arms, blinked at Seraphine's very serious face, and smiled. Seraphine stopped breathing. Marcelline whispered, "Oh, she likes tragic women." I laughed. Leora smiled wider. Seraphine sat down slowly like her knees had failed. "She smiled at me," she said. "She smiled because you look ridiculous," Marcelline replied. Seraphine did not even glare.
She was too busy looking at Leora like the sun had personally chosen her. That was when I knew. Not that everything would be easy. It would not. But that love had entered the room and found all of us unprepared. A year later, Cassian was sentenced. So was Octavia. The remaining council families fractured. Some disappeared, some rebranded. Some pretended they had always supported Omega autonomy. Marcelline kept receipts. Seraphine kept names. I testified twice. The first time, my voice shook. The second time, it did not. Afterward, an Omega girl waited outside the courthouse with her mother. She could not have been more than 16. She handed me a folded note, then ran. Inside, it said, "I left because you spoke." I sat on the courthouse steps and cried so hard Marcelline had to sit on one side of me and Seraphine on the other, like emotional bodyguards. No cameras caught that moment. Good. Some things belong only to the people who survive them. When Leora turned 2, she called Seraphine Sarah and Marcelline Mina, because toddlers do not respect titles. Seraphine pretended to dislike it. She did not. Marcelline cried the first time and claimed allergies. Iona became Nana Shotgun, which we tried to discourage and failed. Mira, Seraphine's niece, visited often. She and Leora adored each other instantly. Seraphine watched them together with a grief that softened over time into something almost peaceful. One summer evening, we all gathered in the garden behind the townhouse. Not a grand estate garden, a small one. Messy. Alive. Tomatoes growing badly because Seraphine insisted on planting them with strategic spacing. Lavender because Marcelline said every home needed fragrance. A sandbox because Leora liked throwing things. I sat on the back step watching them. Seraphine was trying to teach Leora how to stack blocks into a defensible structure. Marcelline was telling her the structure needed beauty. Leora knocked it over and shouted, "Boom!" Iona laughed from the kitchen window. Mira chased butterflies near the fence. For a moment, nobody was hunted. Nobody was a queen. Nobody was a scandal. We were just women in a garden at sunset. Marcelline came to sit beside me, then Seraphine. Our shoulders touched. Once that would have felt impossible. Now it felt like weather. Not always calm, but ours. "Are you happy?" Marcelline asked. I looked at Leora, who had put a block on Seraphine's head. Seraphine was allowing it with grave dignity. "Yes," I said. Then, because honesty had become the only holy thing I trusted, I added, "And sometimes I'm still scared." Seraphine nodded. "So am I." Marcelline leaned her head against my shoulder. "Constantly." I looked at her. "You? Lady Draven?" She smiled. "Especially me. I simply accessorize better." I laughed. Seraphine took my hand. Marcelline took the other. No claiming, no pulling, just holding. Years ago, I thought love was a hand at the back of my neck. Then I thought love was protection, then understanding, then passion, then sacrifice. Now, I think love is smaller and harder than all of that. Love is asking permission even when you are afraid. Love is telling the truth when a lie would keep someone near. Love is learning not to turn wounds into weapons. Love is 3 women standing in a hallway at midnight with a crying child, exhausted and irritated, and still choosing not to leave. Love is a queen burning eggs because she wanted to make breakfast.
Love is another queen buying ridiculous shoes because swollen feet deserve elegance. Love is a retired beta threatening anyone who rings the doorbell during nap time. Love is a baby who was supposed to start a war, becoming the reason the war ended. People still ask whose child Leora is. They whisper, they speculate, they try to make blood more important than bedtime. I give them the answer they hate. She is mine. Then, if they deserve more, I add, and she is loved by women who had to unlearn power before they could become family. One day, when Leora is old enough, I will tell her everything. Not the pretty version. Not the version where her mothers were perfect and brave and always right. I will tell her the truth. That she was born from love tangled with fear. That two queens nearly turned her into a claim before they learned to become worthy of her. That her Omega mother was once trained to kneel, but chose to stand. That blood can matter, but it must never be allowed to rule. That power without tenderness becomes cruelty. That tenderness without boundaries becomes sacrifice. That family is not the absence of mistakes. Family is what happens when people choose repair. And if she asks whether I regret it, I will tell her the most honest thing I know. I regret the lies. I regret the hurt. I regret every moment I let shame make decisions for me. But I do not regret her. Never her. Not for one breath. Because my daughter was not the consequence of my weakness. She was the beginning of my courage. And if the world ever tries to claim her the way it tried to claim me, she will not stand alone. She will have me. She will have Seraphine, who learned that walls are useless without doors. She will have Marcelline, who learned that seeing someone clearly does not mean shaping them. She will have Iona, who still keeps a shotgun behind the tea tins. She will have Mira, who knows blood secrets can become chosen bonds. And most of all, she will have herself. Free, named, loved, not hidden, not owned, not born to kneel. The night before Leora's 3rd birthday, I found Seraphine in the library standing beside the old cradle, the black walnut one, the first gift, the first claim. We had kept it, though I hated it at first. Now it held blankets, baby drawings, old court documents, and the notes Seraphine and Marcelline had left me when everything was falling apart. Seraphine touched the carved wolf on the side. I sent this badly, she said. Yes. I thought protection meant claiming first. I know. She looked at me. I am still sorry. I know that too. Marcelline appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. I sent the bracelet, she said. I smiled. You were also dramatic. I was elegant. You engraved a newborn bracelet before asking whether I wanted either of you involved. She considered this. Dramatic, she conceded. Seraphine looked at her. For once, there was no bitterness, only memory. Marcelline handed her tea. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away quickly. That too was healing. Not grand forgiveness, not erased history. Just fingers touching without war. I stood between them, looking at the cradle that had once terrified me, then at the hallway where Leora slept. Life is strange. Sometimes the thing sent to claim you becomes a box for memories you survived. Sometimes enemies become co-parents. Sometimes love does not arrive clean enough to be innocent, but if people are brave, it can become accountable. Seraphine put her arm around me. Marcelline leaned against my other side. We stood there like that for a long time. 3 women,
One child asleep down the hall.
A city outside, still dangerous, still hungry, still full of old ghosts. But inside, for once, peace. Not perfect, not guaranteed. Chosen. And that is the only kind I trust. If you were in my place, would you have forgiven Seraphine and Marcelline? Would you have let both alpha queens love the child? Or would you have run from them all and raised the baby alone? Tell me where you're listening from. And if you want more dangerous alpha/omega love stories where the omega does not beg, does not break, and does not belong to anyone but herself, subscribe. Because some babies are born into war, but the strongest ones teach queens how to kneel.